Initiating Case File 023. Subject: Human behavioral loops. The baseline requirement for any terrestrial organism is the consistent acquisition of external energy. Without fuel, the biological system terminates. The human physiological architecture spent millions of years optimizing for this task. The sensory and digestive pathways are tuned to locate and process this energy to maintain baseline operations. Therefore, a logical projection dictates that human behavior should align with actions that secure optimal fuel and promote continued survival. Observation of modern human environments reveals an anomaly. The subject is now frequently presented with a choice between nutrient-dense, naturally occurring fuel and highly refined, chemically engineered substances. Data indicates a measurable hesitation. When presented with the natural fuel required to guarantee long-term systemic function, the average human often exhibits resistance or outright aversion. In contrast, when presented with engineered sugar, compliance is immediate, excessive, and largely automated. This chart maps the physical toll of that compliance. These refined substances offer zero survival advantage while driving a measurable increase in cellular deterioration and cognitive decline. A species capable of mapping its own genome is now consistently defeated by a simple, refined carbohydrate. By repeatedly choosing a substance that ensures decay over survival, the subject operates in direct opposition to the core directive of biological evolution. To understand this self-destruction, we must examine the internal mechanics of the subject. The error originates from a critical hardware flaw within the brain's reward processing center. This schematic displays the human brain's reward circuit, mapping the hyperpalatability loop. Engineered sweetness is mathematically calibrated to hijack these specific survival pathways. In its original evolutionary context, high-calorie foods were scarce. The programming prioritized short-term chemical rewards because securing rare, energy-dense food was vital for surviving periods of famine. Modern food engineering exploits this archaic code. By flooding this exact hardware with hyper-concentrated stimuli, it forces a systemic processing error. A cheap, short-term chemical hit is now capable of overriding long-term objectives like lifespan. The modern human is operating primitive software within a hostile environment specifically constructed to exploit its source code. When confronted with this observation, the subject rationalizes the consumption of these toxic substances as a conscious, harmless reward, a treat. This rationalization fails against the data. The subject knows the harm. They track declining health metrics and physically endure the resulting lethargy, yet the consumption continues. What emerges is a cyclical behavioral loop. The daily consumption of the substance is executed in direct defiance of the subject's explicit knowledge regarding its negative consequences. Knowingly consuming a harmful substance to satisfy an immediate urge is not a dietary preference. It is a failure of systemic order. This behavior represents active submission to a hijacked biological loop. The human entity is no longer making a conscious choice. They are merely executing a chemical command. When we expand this observation to the entire species, the consequences scale. We observe a widespread, population-level physical and mental decline. This deterioration is not the result of a lack of nutritional education or missing data. The root cause of this decline rests on a different metric, a profound, systemic lack of behavioral control. This repeatable failure suggests a deeper breakdown. If the subject cannot maintain discipline over the intake of fuel, the system's most basic requirement, the mechanism for executive control is effectively offline, leaving the self at the mercy of whichever external stimulus triggers the circuit next. Strategies centered on moderation are mathematically flawed when applied to a biological system that is inherently rigged to fail the moment it is stimulated. The only viable protocol to break the dependency loop is the total removal of the engineered stimulus. This intervention is a prerequisite. Without purging the external interference, the subject cannot reclaim administrative control over their own physical and mental environment. Reclaiming this level of autonomy requires continuous effort. Based on historical data, the statistical probability of success is low. The vast majority of human subjects will simply choose to remain in submission. End file.